I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Legal Affairs Committee of the Peabody City Council. We have present here this evening on the committee Councilors Gould, Councilors Matsoulis, Councilors O'Neill, and Councilors Gravel. We have two items on the agenda this evening. First item A, is the mayor's recommendation to pursue a zoning amendment banning recreational marijuana business uses in the city. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to review process. I know we have a number of people here that are interested in this issue on both sides of the issue. I just want to point out that this is a meeting of the Legal Affairs Committee of the Peabody City Council. It's a public meeting, but it is not a public hearing. If there is action taken on the recommendation from the mayor, that would take the form of an amendment to the zoning ordinance. An amendment to the zoning ordinance requires two public hearings, one with the planning board and one back here with the city council. Those are public hearings and they would be scheduled at a later date. So getting back to this committee, in these proceedings this evening, as chairperson, at my discretion, I am going to allow the public to comment, but I'm going to allow that on a very limited basis. I'm going to allow up to 2 individuals on each side of the issue to speak, and for a maximum of 3 minutes. We've got about a half an hour slotted for this meeting tonight, so that will take up a sizable portion of the time we have available. If you could take just a moment to decide amongst yourselves who you'd like to speak. Otherwise, I'll just randomly select those individuals myself who raise their hands. Again, there is going to be ample opportunity for additional public input at future public hearings on this topic, and I thank you in advance for your cooperation. Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, councilors. Good evening, everyone in the audience tonight. My name is Mayor Ted Betancourt, and I'm here to respectfully request that the City Council bring forth and ultimately adopt a zoning amendment banning recreational marijuana operations in Peabody. First of all, I recognize that this is an issue that generates strong feelings on both sides, and that good people can disagree. I happen to feel passionate about this issue. I happen to feel very strongly that this is the right thing for the city of Peabody, and here is why. As you know, a majority of Peabody voters opposed the 2016 referendum in legalizing recreational marijuana. Also opposed were most of the Massachusetts police chiefs and district attorneys, including our own police chief, Tom Griffin, and our district attorney, John Blodgett. And I ask you to speak to John, hear what he has to say about this issue. He's been to Colorado on multiple occasions. He can tell you what he has experienced and what he has learned about the operations in Colorado and the detrimental effect that it has had on cities and towns in that area. As city leaders, I believe it is incumbent upon us to respect the apprehensions of Peabody voters as well as local law enforcement officials who are charged with keeping us safe. Although nearly 2 years have passed since the referendum, there are a great many unanswered questions regarding implementation of the new law, how it will be policed, and its effects on public health and safety. Many in the law enforcement community believe that legalizing marijuana during the current opioid epidemic is a mistake. They also believe legalization will result in a surge of marijuana-impaired driving, which they say is nearly impossible to test for and extremely difficult to prosecute. Already struggling with distracted and otherwise impaired drivers, police officers believe their jobs are about to get a lot more difficult and the roads more dangerous. Reviewing the final Cannabis Control Commission, or CCC, regulations relative to retail marijuana outlets, one finds no specific level of commitment from the state to help cities and towns with compliance. I'm told that CCC enforcement can be expected only after specific complaints are lodged. This means the crucial regular enforcement of purchasing age and other operation restrictions will fall largely to the City of Peabody. It will fall to us, our police department, our public health department, our inspectional services department. The burden of oversight and enforcement will fall on us, and the costs associated with the oversight and enforcement will fall on us. And let me address the revenue that retail marijuana advocates point to. Marijuana advocates will say tonight that recreational marijuana will be an economic boon for Peabody. Don't believe that hype. There will be revenue, certainly. 3% of sales will go to cities and towns. $1 million operation, City of Peabody, just to give you an example, will generate $30,000 in tax revenue to the City of Peabody. But let me be clear. That revenue is going to be used not for sidewalk improvements, not for street paving, not for a new water treatment plant or other infrastructure needs that we're going to have to make decisions on in the near future. Rather, that 3% will be used to pay for more police officers on the roads, additional training for our public safety officials, state-of-the-art roadside testing equipment that's going to be necessary, additional health inspectors to enforce regulations, more investment in treatment and counseling for our students. That's where any revenue, that's where that 3% will go. And let me also save you the suspense of wondering if the Cannabis Control Commission or some other or additional state aid will be given to pay for that additional law enforcement, that additional training, that additional safety of our roads, the additional support services for our children and our educational community. They won't be coming from the Cannabis Control Commission, and it won't be coming from the state. It will fall on us to find that money to pay for these things. It always does. Although I strongly support the City Council's medical marijuana zoning ordinance, we must make a clear distinction between medicinal and retail marijuana operations. Medicinal marijuana operations are indistinct buildings set away from neighborhoods and schools and protected by professional security personnel. Patients require state-issued identification and a doctor's prescription to purchase the drug. Retail pot shops, on the other hand, rely on walk-in business and will aggressively market their product to attract and entice passerbys, including children. We already deal with issues of corner convenience stores in Peabody, and I know this is a sensitive issue with many of you, as it is with me, displaying hookah pipes and bongs and other smoking paraphernalia in their front windows. There are free speech protections for these stores, and that will certainly be extended to pot shops, despite what the CCC regulations might say. I want you to take a moment and imagine what a pot shop would mean in your neighborhood. Imagine a pot shop at the Big Y Plaza. Imagine a pot shop at the corner of Lowell and Johnson Ave. Tonight you're going to be hearing a request from Danvers Savings Bank, or East Boston Savings Bank, excuse me. Imagine a pot shop going there. Imagine a pot shop at the new Bonkers Plaza. Imagine a pot shop on Main Street, right next to the new restaurants that we're bringing into town. Imagine a pot shop at Stonewood Plaza. That's where these stores will want to open up. That's where these stores will want to be. And that scares the hell out of me. Law enforcement, in terms of marketing and advertising restrictions, the CCC regulations outline several, but most contain language authorizing all manners of marketing and promotion, as long as 85% of the intended audience is reasonably expected to be over the age of 21. Think about that for a moment. All manners of marketing and promotion are authorized as long as 85% of the intended audience is reasonably anticipated to be over the age of 21. This is, of course, ridiculous on its face. Who will be responsible for deciding which marketing campaign only reaches 15% of our children? Will it be another state agency? And I believe we are kidding ourselves if we think marijuana retailers are not going to target children. Why else do they market cannabis-infused gummy bears, gummy worms, Sour Patch Chews, chocolate bites, and soft drinks? Law enforcement and health officials are very concerned about the time-release aspect of the drug in edible form. The delayed effect after consumption lulls users into a false sense of sobriety and often leads to overconsumption and severely impaired judgment. It is likely the marijuana-infused edibles will fall into the hands of youngsters who may not even be aware that they are ingesting a psychoactive drug. To rationalize otherwise is irresponsible. Tonight you may hear from marijuana advocates that marijuana is not a gateway drug. Now, I don't have a medical background and I can't say what's correct, but I can say what I've been told all my life by people in the medical field and in law enforcement is that it is a gateway drug. And I can say that, like all of you, I have known people close to me, people I went to school with, that have had their lives ruined or lost their lives because of drugs. I can say that in a majority of those cases, marijuana played a role at some point in their lives. In the midst of an opioid epidemic that has destroyed countless lives, and with the dangers young people already face online and elsewhere in a troubled world, what message are we sending to the most impressionable members of our community, our children? It's not easy being a kid nowadays. The pressures are immense. We as a community have invested heavily in providing treatment options, counseling, and providing a helping hand to children and families in Peabody who are struggling the most. The Student-Based Health Center at Peabody High School has been a godsend that all of us help invest in, has been a godsend helping us to identify and support those students most at risk. Our Healthy Peabody Collaborative offers wonderful programs designed to encourage young people to make better choices for their lives. In the past 6 years, you and I have worked together to invest in Peabody and make it a more desirable place for families. We built the beautiful New Higgins Middle School. We modernized our aging infrastructure. We've strengthened public safety, improved our parks and open spaces, and have worked tirelessly to attract economic development to the city in our downtown. Our home values are skyrocketing. Homes are being purchased within days of going on the market. I think we all agree that this investment is paying off and that Peabody is on the rise. When we think of some of the nearby cities and towns known for making similar investments in education, public safety, economic development, and quality of life, I am impressed by how many of those municipalities have a recreational marijuana ban in place. Not a moratorium, but an outright ban. Cities and towns like Danvers, Burlington, Woburn, Weston, Lexington, Hamilton, North Reading, Bedford, Milton, North Andover. 189 of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts have a ban or a moratorium, more than half. North Andover, for instance, their residents pay nearly 3 times the taxes that we pay here in the city of Peabody. And their aging infrastructure concerns are just as real as ours. But they made a decision as to this issue and bypassed that 3% revenue because of what it means for the future of their city. This is a defining moment for Peabody. What type of city do we want to be? Let me say in closing, I've been mayor for over 6 years now. I love the job, and I hope to continue doing it for some time. But whether I'm mayor 6 years or 26 years, whether you are councilors for 5 months or 30 years, this is a decision that will affect the character and direction of our community for many, many years to come. This is one of those defining moments. Is this what we want as a community? The answer to me is a clear and resounding no. Our residents deserve better, our families deserve better, our children deserve better, Peabody deserves better. Thank you.
At this point, I'm going to allow 2 members of the general public to speak that are supportive of recreational marijuana. We have one. Please come up to the podium. Please state your name and address.
You said supportive of the proposal?
Nope, supportive of recreational marijuana.
Wanted to make sure I was in the right place.
You need to please turn your microphone on, and I'm going to direct this comment to any speaker that comes up tonight. The first thing you need to do is state your name and full address for the record, please. Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee for affording me this opportunity to speak. My name is Tristan Brown. I live at 22A County Street in Ward 1. I'm an attorney. I'm the parent of 2 Peabody public school students, and I got 2 more who are going to come and burden our school system in the next couple of years. Now, I'm concerned by the tenor this argument has taken. I'm really flabbergasted with the arguments that have been leveled in support of this proposal. These arguments are plainly irrational. They're hyperbolic. They're based on a lot of fears, but not a lot of facts. And I'd like to illustrate my point just by briefly examining two schools of these arguments. One being the what will it mean for our town argument, and the public safety questions that have been raised. Folks who seem to think that this is going to change our community have a very dim view of how strong we are as a community. They think that somehow one or two recreational marijuana facilities is going to be the end of our quaint little community. I beg to differ. We are strong. We are scrappers. We're working class fighters. We have 2 strip clubs up on Route 1. We have a thriving adult entertainment industry. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we have 60 liquor licenses, 60. And this body has recently lobbied the state legislator for more liquor licenses. Somehow, we're led to believe that 1 or 2 recreational marijuana facilities is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. It is nonsense. Now, I'd like to switch over and talk about these public safety concerns. The mayor has offered a powerful, if a bit hyperbolic, argument for why we shouldn't have legalized marijuana at all. That's not the question before us. Legal marijuana is here. The question is, how do we maximize the benefits and how do we mitigate the costs to this community? So let's assume for an instant that every single one of the terrible outcomes the mayor suggests is heading our way is coming. Let's take the worst case scenario. Well, that scenario is going to happen whether or not somebody's buying their pot up on Route 1 or a mile down the road in Salem or 5 miles away in Danvers. It's going to happen. If these terrible outcomes, which I think there's reason to doubt, come to pass, we're going to have public use, people on the roads driving inebriated, we're going to have drugs in our school. The only effect this ban will have on that, it won't stop that from happening. It will mean we lack the revenue to confront these problems, these real problems, as they arise. So instead of taxing marijuana users, having them clean up the mess they cause in our town, taxing people of Peabody and people who come from outside of Peabody to spend their hard-earned dollars, we're going to tax these fine people in the audience. We're going to tax homeowners. We're going to raise property taxes. This is not going to fall on the users. This burden's going to fall on little old ladies trying to keep their homes. It is going to fall on struggling families just trying to make ends meet. You want to talk about a moral problem? Well, there's a moral issue for you. So I'll end with this. As I said, this fall I'm going to have 3 kids in Peabody Public Schools. Another couple of years I'll have another one. My daughter's in the 5th grade. Her class is so big, they're not reading books together. They have listened to two books on tape this year. They don't have enough books, and they don't have enough teachers to go around. During a basketball game at an elementary school, it was raining, and the leak from the roof was so bad, we had a principal and a janitor running across the court when the playing went to the other side just to keep it safe because they were afraid kids were going to fall and crack their heads. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to address my concerns here. And this ban is books out of the hands of kids. This ban is money out of our schools and teachers out of our classroom. Thank you very much. God bless.
We need to move it along, folks.
Hi, my name is Kathy Hyde.
Need to turn the microphone on, please.
My name is Kathy Hotney. I've lived in Peabody for 30 years. My son graduated from the school system here. I'm also a registered nurse, and I've worked in the intensive care unit for the last 17 years. The majority of people that came in with overdoses with opiates, very few, I think maybe 1 or 2 over the last 17 years, have also tested positive for marijuana. I believe marijuana is also a very good exit drug for people who are opioid dependent. The people who are taking those drugs, there's been research involved. Am I talking too loud on this? There has been research involved that if they use the marijuana while they're coming off the opioids, they have better success because of the portion of the brain that is affected. I also believe that having a retail establishment in this community could benefit it greatly. I believe that the money that would come in would be significant enough to get the roof on the school fixed, and if we need more police officers, it could pay for that as well. I'm not sure if the city is going to require policemen to be in the shops, which that would help pay for that as well, because we would have to pay for that individually. One of the other things is, as far as like the edibles go, adults eat the edibles. The older adults, my mom eats cookies because she has severe pain in her foot. So she doesn't take opioids for the pain, but she will eat a cookie at night before she goes to bed, and she gets good sleep. I also think the public health department, I think they can take a look at this and that it can be adjusted so that it is very safe. I know in Oregon, when they sell the marijuana, they have a package that you have to squeeze and pull to open. It doesn't just automatically open. So when they walk out of the store, it's in that package, which is sealed, and it can't be opened by children. I couldn't even open it the first time I got it. Somebody had to show me how to do it. And I also think that being able to stay in this community, to provide the money that would go to this community, to support this community, would really be something that I would enjoy. Because I've lived here for 30 years, I think it's a great community, and I appreciate everything that you all do for your job. But I think that having a retail establishment, I don't believe that it would cause chaos. I don't believe that it would cause unlimited, I don't know, what's the word I'm trying to find, misuse or anything. But, so I would like to say that, and thank you again for your time.
I need your street address, please.
I'm sorry, 25 Coolidge Ave in Peabody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask if there are a couple of opponents of recreational marijuana, if you could raise your hand or make your way up to the microphone. Dr. Levine.
Herb Levine, 14 Hamilton Road, Peabody, Superintendent of Schools. My son graduated Peabody High School as an opiate addict. He began with marijuana. Not everybody that smokes marijuana becomes an opiate addict, but everybody that I know in my 49-year career that is an opiate addict began with marijuana. Some people see recreational marijuana shops as a gift horse. I see it as a Trojan horse. I am here to tell you that it's the wrong message to send to kids. We're working so hard and putting in so many resources to do the opposite of what the message is if we open recreational marijuana shops in Peabody. I am dead set against it, and I hope that you will vote that way. Thank you.
Is there another individual that would like to speak? Yep, thank you. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Karen Souza. I live at 13 Shamrock Street. We all know that smoking tobacco products don't kill you. Nobody has died from a smoking tobacco overdose product. You die from lung cancer. You don't die from smoking marijuana. You die from the causes of what it does to you and what it can do to you mentally. From mental illness, in the form of suicide, in the form of car crashes, so you can't say that marijuana doesn't kill. A big topic is money. For the city, it's going to make more money, that's what I keep hearing, but there's no amount of money that this city can bring, or any city in the state of Massachusetts, that can bring back State Trooper Thomas Clarity. He was struck and killed by a driver who was impaired by marijuana back in 2016. So if this does go through, I urge all of you, call his wife and let her know what you chose. Take a moment and think, if you can, of your children, your nieces, your nephew, your grandchildren. A vote yes could be a vote that a driver who is under marijuana, the influence, could strike down a loved one. How would you be able to sleep at night knowing that your vote help that to happen. Peabody residents already spoke when they went to the polls. Remember that question to legalize marijuana was on a presidential ballot. The results to question number 4 was 14,980 no's to 12,780 yeses. It's clear the citizens of Peabody don't want this. I can't stress enough that there is no price that can be put on an individual's lives or anyone that you love in order for this to go through. Just a quick thought. Would you, in your mind, would you like your child, and your child can be anybody over the age of 18 or 21, they're still your child, to light up right in front of you in your living room? Is that something that you promote? I don't. As a citizen of Peabody, but more so as a mother, I ask for a vote of no. Just a quick side note, I keep hearing the word gateway drug. Everyone has their own opinion on what a gateway drug is. From what I've read and the research that I've done, a clear definition of a gateway drug is a habit-forming drug that, while not itself is addictive, but may lead to the use of other addictive drugs. Research shows that an addict is always looking for an ultimate high. So in many cases, marijuana was a person's introduction to drugs, and that high feeling. After a while, a high is not as great as the individual is looking for, and they need something stronger. That is when an addict will move on to something stronger. Peabody has always been a city that leads. Trailblazers is something I've heard tonight, I believe, if you will. So why do we have to follow what other towns are doing or other states? Vote with your morals. Vote with what the Peabody citizens have already told you. Each of you were put in your seats tonight by the voters, and the voters said no to this. Don't turn this into a politician that has your own agenda. Your seat here were given to you by the voters of Peabody, so please listen to what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the committee. I'm sorry, Mr. Zelen, 2 on each side of the issue this evening. I'd remind everybody again that there'll be ample opportunity going forward, should this leave committee, at the public hearings for public comment. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the committee. Comments from the committee. Councilor Matsoulis.
Well, I've got to tell you a little story before I go into how I feel about this. I got on this council 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago, and I made 2 motions. And let me tell you what those motions were. I think I was ahead of my time. One of the motions were, let's put the connector road in, and we all know the traffic is here and it's too late for that. But let me tell you what my second motion was, that we have a drug problem in this city. And I said it right here on this floor. And you know what? At the time, we were in a different time 40 years ago. Drugs were confined to the poorer neighborhoods. You didn't have them out in West Peabody. If you did, they were hiding it pretty well. And you didn't have it in West Peabody, okay? It was downtown, where I was brought up. And I have seen quite a lot. And I really don't want to tell you everything I've seen because it's pretty sad. I have seen people change in front of my eyes. You wouldn't believe it, okay? Let me tell you what I tell every youngster. I've even told my own kids, you know. Don't try heroin. You will never, ever be the same person again. That's how serious this is. Now, everybody has lost someone, family member, friend, an acquaintance. Everybody in this room has lost someone to the drug problem we have today, okay? Now, I have read almost every report that's come out from universities to whoever's looking to promote drugs. And when you talk about, like the gentleman said, what's fact and what's not fact, I'll tell you what is fact, that of all the reports I have read, there is not one that says that marijuana, doesn't lead to other harder drugs. I have yet to see a university or a report to say that marijuana will not lead to, as a fact, okay? Well, I don't believe it. I haven't read it. I've seen reports. I have not seen any that will say that if you smoke marijuana, it will not lead, or you don't have the craving. Okay? Listen, I'm not a pro at this. I'm only telling you my feelings. 40 years ago, as I said, I made that motion on this council, and I was ridiculed by the Salem News, by my peers. Look at the problem it is today. Look at 40 years later what we have, okay? And I am not closed-minded to this. I'm open-minded. When we talk about the medical marijuana, listen, if that helps people out, I'm for it. But I can't go against what I've seen growing up. I can't go against the tragedies that drugs has brought into this city. Is marijuana going to do this? Hey, listen, I don't think any one of us know. But am I going to take the chance? Am I going to allow the public to just go get marijuana to our young kids? Am I going to allow them? Am I going to vote to say yes, to let them go into the stores, into the retail stores and buy marijuana? And knowing in my mind, hey, not everybody's gonna. It's like drinking alcohol. Some people drink alcohol, some become alcoholics, some don't. Okay, but I'm not going to take the chance of opening up the doors for our youth to just go in and buy marijuana. Okay, because I don't know if that person is going to lead to anything higher. To go to the opiate. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm not going to be the one to take that chance because of what I've seen. And let me tell you, the mayor spoke very strong on this issue, and I don't think he was born when I made this motion 40 years ago. Okay, and I feel even stronger than he does that this is something that does not belong in this city, and I certainly cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most of my colleagues know that I've been a sober adult for 27 years. I had my first drink at 14. I had smoked my first weed at 16. I didn't stop for 20 years. I flunked out of 3 schools, 3 colleges, because all I cared about was getting high and drinking. My parents they had no idea what to do, but the poor things, they spent all kinds of money in trying to educate me, and all I did was continue to party. I met the love of my life and continued to drink and smoke. Thank God she took a stand one day and threw me out of the house. I had 2 little babies at home, and I got sober that day. I stopped smoking and stopped drinking that day. Went to AA. and my whole world changed. It's pretty emotional here to talk about it, and I don't want it to be about me, but I want it to be about what a compulsive, addictive person such as myself encountered by smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol. If it wasn't for a strong woman as my wife, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have the strong business that I have. I wouldn't be a strong community member. And it doesn't affect, as Dr. Levine said, doesn't affect everybody. But I know it affected me, and I won't be supporting it because of that reason. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Both sides of the issue that we're debating tonight can rebut each other with their own opinions and beliefs. I'm not going to debate the moral issue of marijuana use. It's currently legal for adults in Massachusetts to use it. However, since it is still currently a Schedule I drug, according to the federal government, there's been little scientific research to truly study the benefits. Fact remains that cannabis research has not kept pace with cannabis policy. At the end of the day, the voters of Peabody did go to the ballot, as we know, in November of 2016, and voted against the legalization of marijuana. I intend to follow through with their wishes. But I do want to frame my concerns about this issue at hand, recreational uses, or I guess banning of recreational establishments. It's, while the question 4 was decided in November of 2016, the state's Cannabis Control Commission just issued the regulations last month. And there are still more questions than answers, as the mayor said, as it relates to what could ultimately be considered under the definition of recreational. For instance, could it be social use establishments like cafes where customers can use marijuana on its premises? Also, what about a mixed-use establishment like a yoga facility that's also selling food that contains cannabis? Just at this point in time, I think it's not prudent for us to continue with just the moratorium that ends in December 2018. I think it's right to ban it. The counter argument to that is that we don't need to rush to start allowing recreational establishments in the city. If at a time the citizens or the city feels that the laws and regulations are well researched, established, and have been working, it might be something to consider. But this argument about that we're losing out an opportunity, we're going to have all kinds of funds coming from this recreational marijuana establishment tax stream, I don't think it's a compelling argument. There are no guarantees, and we shouldn't make our decision based on the fact that there is a potential for money to come. I think we should vote to ban it, vote to ban recreational establishments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Other councilors? Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I still hear confusion about, first of all, we have no authority to make something that's legal illegal. The people who've communicated to me via email seem to insist that, and they give good examples, by the way, of medical uses. And I voted to support a medical zone. I voted to support the creation of n number of medical facilities. Matter of fact, I was one who thought that the ward council at the time felt that one was enough, and I thought it's not our jurisdiction to determine what competition is. And if there are 4 parcels in a medical zone, then there could be up to 4 establishments or more. The thing that I keep hearing is that a vote to ban recreational is somehow changing the ability of people to, one, under the legalization, grow their own, which it doesn't. 2, to not allow the use of recreational marijuana in the city, it doesn't. All it does is it basically bans an establishment from selling recreational. And, examples given about, revenue. Somebody I saw online said that wasn't interested in the revenue aspect of it. Obviously, they didn't listen to the last meeting that we had on this because I said at the time, just as the mayor said, nobody's proven a revenue argument for it in terms of what the size of that revenue stream would be. I'm in business. It clearly, if it results in $30,000, I'm not sure that the benefit is worth the cost. And I agree with the mayor in terms of the costs associated with it. Everybody has the freedom to do what they want in their home, and if it's legal within the confines of the city. I heard an argument tonight that said that, one or two. Well, if you have a zoning ordinance that says that you will allow, we can't constrain the number. If we will allow it in BN, BR, if we allow it in BC, any one of those districts, we will not have the right to say, no, we only want one, unless the state starts issuing recreational marijuana licenses like they do with liquor licenses, which is the only way they've been able to control liquor licenses is by authorizing an amount. I've heard people say it really shouldn't matter, yet I've heard arguments in this council in my 12 years here where a convenience store that wanted to sell beer and wine was too close to a school. Find me a zone where there isn't a school in proximity. I hear what Councilor O'Neill is saying, in particular as it pertains to, this ordinances. We have examples of ordinances, hundreds of ordinances changing over the course of time. And you look at something like this and say, what does this mean? It just means that we're not first. Is there a prize for being first? I don't know what that prize is. I don't know that anybody knows what that prize is, including the Cannabis Control Commission, which seems to be struggling with decisions and how to make them. I do hear the people responsible for our schools say that they're not in support of it. I heard loud and clear the citizens when the vote came up in the presidential election that they're not in support of it. I heard the police say they're not in support of it. And these are all people who we look to protect our kids and to make for a safe society. And I agree with what the gentleman was saying about, it doesn't mean that they're going to be any safer, because they won't. But in the same vein, I do know the added burden, which the state tends to put on every single thing that gets passed, will end up as another unfunded mandate. Look what they told us when we established the CPC, that we would be matched 50%, 60%, and now what are we matched? 15%. How about our special education law? We're always grappling with budgets based upon the fact that we have a law that provides for the best possible services with no funding source from the state. So I think it's too early to jump all in. I think it'll be interesting to see what other communities around us end up doing. I don't think that changes the perspective for us at any time in the future. If a political body, whether I'm here or not, decides to take the matter up again, they can. Referendums can be put on the ballot again. They'll have that opportunity. I just think that there's no real need, there's no compelling good argument to move quickly into this area. So I am not going to support And I will be making a motion tonight to put the ban in place as I've made it before. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Other councilors? Councilor Charest.
Thank you, Chairman. Even though I'm not part of this committee, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. My views on this is not personal. It's not my. I don't take what I personally believe morally, financially, into account as I do as the voters. As the woman who was up here earlier said, I had a very long, busy campaign not even a year ago. And 75% of the people I spoke to were against having marijuana shops here in Peabody. Yes, a lot of people voted for it, but the majority of them voted against it. They're fine with it being legalized, but they don't want it in their neighborhood. And I heard that pretty clear. They don't care what you do in your home. They're not making a moral judgment on recreational. Now, the medical is a total different article, story, position. It does help people. We're not saying by banning it, it's going to be removing that option for them. But what we are saying, what I am saying, I am listening to my constituents. And my constituents said to me, maybe they didn't say it to you, but they said it to me, they don't want pot shops in their neighborhood, in their city. Perhaps you can put it at a corner of the city, close to Danvers, close to Salem. Maybe people in my Ward 4 said, well, that'd be better. They didn't say that. They said they didn't want it in their city, in their ward. We had a restaurant up in West Peabody, because they were in a neighborhood, didn't want to have a liquor license. That'd be a great spot right now for a pot shop, wouldn't it? Right? People are worried about what's going to be around their corner of their homes. Don't tell me having pot shops here in Peabody. Again, this isn't a moral issue for me. But don't tell me that having shops here in Peabody, then it's going to be more than 2, because we know it says 20% of the liquor licenses. There's going to be more than 2. That it doesn't make it easier for someone under 21 to get a bag or get an edible. They can very easily say to their older brother and sister or someone next door, hey, can you just run down to Bunghole next door? There's a pot shop. Can you grab me some? It's a lot easier for them to go there than it would be in Salem. Now, other people say, well, it would be convenient for people here in Peabody to be able to purchase it here in the city. Really? So do you think Coach John, who coaches basketball and soccer for little kids, is going to be going to a store here in Peabody to pick up their weed? We're coming out. People could say, oh, just Coach John. No, he's going to go to another community where nobody knows him or her. The teacher, the fireman, the policeman. Here in Peabody, it's not going to be convenient for them to come here in Peabody, where they live, to purchase that. They're going to go outside of the city. So it doesn't really benefit anybody here in Peabody. But you know what does? The same scenario for someone who lives in Reading or Danvers or any other community. Peabody sells it, oh, you can go there, because I don't know anyone in Peabody. So I can go in there. And what does that do? It increase traffic. Every time we're going to have a convenience store, a 7-Eleven, a Dunkin' Donuts, or whatever, we always ask the police, the fire, the city officials, does it increase traffic? And if the police and the fire, and they say, yes, it's going to increase traffic, and they want to drive through, they don't get it. That's on those stores. So what does it do with the pot shops? As the mayor said, we don't like the pipes in the windows downtown the big leaves in the window. What do you think these shops are going to do? They're going to do the exact same, and it's going to be geared exactly for that. There's certain stores we don't want. We don't think it's a good image to pick Peabody up. This is. But I go back to my original statement. It's not so much of what I believe, what I think we should have in the city. It's what my constituents told me that they don't want. And I'm going to listen, and I'm going to honor, and I made a pledge to them that when the time comes up, I would not support it. I would support a ban. And I keep my promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sasslaw.
Thank you. So as the one council who's been in favor of it, it's going to be kind of tough to dispel all the information that you've heard tonight. And you've heard many things. You've heard moral things. You've heard financial things. But I'm just going to tell you what I think from my point of view. I'm going to cover some of it. I can't cover all of it. I'll go back. I'll hear the record. Obviously, the mayor said a lot tonight. I can't address it all, but I'll address basically what my message has been over the past few weeks. So I'm a 55-year-old man. I was raised in this city. I have two teenagers, 13 and 15. To me, it's my job to raise my children. They might get assistance from the schools, police departments, the guidance counselors, but it's my job to teach my children about ethics and morals. My children, my sons, they understand why at 21 there are certain things you can do in this state, in this city, in this country. And I'll continue to have those conversations with them. And those conversations take place around supper. They've heard me on the phone the last 6 months. They know what's going on. They're not stupid. So that's where my education takes place with my children. And I'm proud of that, and I'll stand behind that. As the mayor said earlier, we're all good people. We can just agree to disagree at times. Maybe the time's not right for some people. Maybe it's right for other people. One of the things that does bother me is it's so easy to say they voted and they voted they didn't want it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the problem I have with that is the rules have changed. When they voted, it was illegal. Today, as we sit here in this Commonwealth, in this chamber, it is legal. You can't tell me that doesn't make a difference. If you do, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to anybody else you say it to. The rules have changed. It is legal. Now, we had a couple of hundred, I don't know how many people in the state legislature, people make a decision that said, you know what? If your town voted no, the governing body, that's us 11 people here tonight, they're going to give us the power to make that decision. That was fine, you know, and I know we live in a, representation by government, but I also believe that when I campaigned last year, it never came up, to be quite frank with you. I'm not going to say I asked it, but it never really came up. A lot of other issues came up, but it never did come up. But I also know that if you give someone the right to go into a voting box and have privacy and vote what they believe, and that's what this country was built on, and the message and the rules have changed, give them that opportunity again. Don't take it away from them. Now, let's talk a little bit about our city here. We didn't want billboards. Why are billboards in Peabody? Billboards are in Peabody because we happen to be just at the highways and byways, and we have people going through our city. And so the billboard company said, you know what, Peabody's a good situation. So we zoned it, we controlled it, we take $250,000 a year, maybe $500,000 a year, depending on the year it is, and that's what we did. I believe that we can zone it and control it. This talk about pot shops like a McDonald's or a 7-Eleven, this is the disconnect. Do you folks understand the millions of dollars it costs to open up these facilities? You don't walk in and just buy pot. Do you understand the millions of dollars these people have put in their operations? Do you think they're going to allow people to just come in there and forgo and give up their license or jeopardize that? So the pot shops on every corner, absolutely not. And that's just such an easy argument to throw out there to make people be afraid. You know, you talk about the wrong, I heard a lot about the wrong message we're sending our children. Okay, so we're going to have it legal in Lynn. We're going to have it legal in Salem. My kids don't know what goes on in Lynn and Salem. Your kids don't know what goes on in Lynn and Salem. What, are we going to keep it in an incubator and not let them know what's going on? It's here. The toothpaste is out of the tube. It's not going back in. But let's zone it, let's control it, and let's regulate it. I certainly understand this Cannabis Commission. It's not a perfect document. No document's perfect. Maybe the Constitution, but not many are. But there's certainly a set of guidelines. 20% is the maximum we can have in Peabody. Doesn't mean we have them, but it put a number in there. So, you know, I don't believe it's a gateway drug. I'm going to state that for the record. I would never, not never, but I'm not surprised that the chiefs, the majority of the chiefs, the majority of the DAs don't support it. I understand that. But we also had two former police officers, I think a chief from Rochester and the sheriff from Hampden County came up and support the medical marijuana. And let's just be honest and be adults here, folks. So I'm going to tell you a little story. You want to believe it, you believe it. You don't, you don't. If you have $250 tomorrow and you go to Essex Center Drive and you go see a doctor and you give him $250 and you say I have anxiety, you're going to get your medical card. And then if you want to, go down to the Moose Club, I think it's right around the corner from Allen's Leather, and go buy some marijuana and do that. And that marijuana that they sell in there, starting July 1st or August 1st, whenever the state decides to open up the doors and the retail shop opens, that marijuana is no different than the marijuana you buy in the medical facility, recreational facility. The only difference is this: the medical facility will not tax it, and there'll be discounts available to veterans, but it's not a different product. It's the same exact thing. So that, to me, is a fallacy. Don't commit the mistake we committed 25 years ago. You know what that mistake was that this Commonwealth did? It started with the blue laws. Couldn't buy alcohol on a Sunday. Oh, I'm having a family graduation. I'll go up to New Hampshire. I'll grab my beer and wine there. We'll have a celebration. But 25 years ago, the major mistake this Commonwealth made is we opened up a conveyor belt of money to Connecticut called Foxwoods. And it was bad. And then came Mohegan, and it was bad. And so what are we doing now? Everyone's embracing Everett. And Springfield's going to open up their casino next month. So don't talk to me about morals. Don't talk to me about that. It's about, sometimes it is about the money, and I'm not ashamed to say that. $2.7 million loan for new water main pipe, interest-free. In the last few weeks, we've heard about Winona Water Treatment Plant, initially $15 million statement. Just days ago, it was quoted that it could cost up to $40 million. Our water rates are going up close to over 20% in the last 3 years. And don't forget, by the way, when we put that new main in down Route 1, that's not the end of it, folks. We have to buy pumps to push that water into the neighborhoods to get the pressure. All of our contracts are up this year. I believe in paying our employees good money, but even a minimal pay raise like 2 to 3% adds up to millions of dollars. We have pending litigation that we're going to have to deal with. We need a new center school. We need a new Welch school. Roads and sidewalks. We're no different than other communities, I get that, but you know what? I'm worried about Peabody's roads and sidewalks. Just this week, our mayor proposed to keep the dump open. Why? Money. That's why. Recently, our bond rating was dropped. As minimal as it may be, it was dropped. All these things add up. And unfortunately, there are surprises that are going to happen that we don't know about, like the Coolidge fire. That just happens. That's life. They always teach you, put 25% away so you can pay your bills. God forbid you lose your job. Those things are going to happen. I believe that Congressman Moulton said it best at our recent town hall meeting when commenting on whether Peabody should be in recreational marijuana. He said, "I think this is a mistake on the part of Peabody or other cities that choose this path. The reality is we are not going to make marijuana go away by pretending that it's not in our community. We ought to be doing it. What we ought to be doing is figuring out ways to regulate it, use it responsibly, because otherwise it's going to be used in the shadows." I can guarantee you that these recreational facilities that are going to open up, they're far different than backroom alley deals of marijuana that take place in the back room. And let me tell you what the real problem today is at the high school, in the middle school, if no one has told you yet. Vaping. And you may ask why. The reason why it's a problem is because it's readily available with no limit, with no controls. I haven't heard anybody, I see a little bit of talk about that, but it's out there. Once again, I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, folks. I'm just telling you the truth. It's out there, but it's not controlled. I believe we can do a much better job, and we're required to do a much better job of controlling it. It's very difficult to come out and speak in favor of something that still has a stigma. To the people who support it and showed up tonight and wrote emails, you'll have more time to do that and continue with that. You know, two decades of tax increases. It was very interesting. I'll just close with this. I looked at the budget. Our budget last year, $164 million. You know what our increase was last year? $5.1 million. In Amesbury, ATG, the first company to ever open up a medical facility in this Commonwealth in Salem, they're going to Amesbury to open up the recreational with the support of the council and the mayor. The projection, and I know projections aren't always truthful, but there's a big difference between $30,000 and $5 million. They're projecting $15 to $17 million with 6% tax, approximately $1.5 to $1.7 million. They're on the border in New Hampshire. I get it. We're right on Route 1. We're on 95, 128. I get that too. So you take that $5.1 million increase on the budget last year. What do you think it's going to be this year? I don't think it's going to be much less. Maybe. I don't think so. If it is, I guarantee it'll be more the next year. So that's the reason why I support it. And at the end of the day, it's America. It's choice. I believe in that. I believe in democracy. But I hope I've given you some reasons to think about. I know we have a few more weeks. I will continue the conversation. I welcome those who want to talk about it. And thank you for your my time tonight.
Thank you, Councilor. Other councilors? Seeing none, Councilor Gravel, you alluded to a motion in your commentary.
Chairman, I move under Section 1510 of the zoning ordinance to initiate an amendment to said zoning ordinance to ban recreational marijuana business uses in the city and incorporate by reference the exact language of the amendment approved by the Planning Board by its communication to this council dated November 8th, 2017, which stated that the city adopt the proposed zoning amendment to the zoning ordinance under date of April 28, 2011, amended through July 18, 2017, is hereby further amended as followed by repealing Section 6.14 entitled Temporary Moratorium on the Sale and Distribution of Recreational Marijuana and adding a new Section 6.14 as follows. 6.14 marijuana establishments forbidden the operation of any marijuana establishment as defined in GLC 94G Section 1, including without limitation a marijuana cultivator, marijuana testing facility, marijuana production product manufacturer, marijuana retailer, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related business is prohibited in all zoning districts of the city. This prohibition shall not apply to the marijuana-related business. This prohibition shall not apply to the sale, distribution, or cultivation of marijuana for medical purposes licensed under Chapter 369 of the Acts of 2012. Section 2, all ordinance or parts of ordinance inconsistent herewith are hereby repealed. In Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect as provided by law. I would also add to the motion that a hearing would be scheduled upon same and through the clerk to properly advertise the amendment and further require the city clerk to communicate this amendment to the planning board within 14 days of the vote hereon. So moved.
Thank you, councilors. Councilors, you heard the motion. On the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors O'Neill,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Mitsoulas,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 2. I'm sorry, item B, recent audit of dealerships, lemon law sticker audit. Councilors, you have a late communication on your desk from Assistant City Solicitor Adam Buckley on this matter, dated May 10th, 2018. Can I have a motion to receive?
Move to receive.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. So, members of the committee, we received these letters from the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation that were results of their audit of the lemon law stickers in the instances where the stickers were in place, and in some in the situation with some dealerships where they were not in place or partially in place. This communication from Assistant City Solicitor Adam Buckley is a recommendation on how to proceed with those communications. So is there any comment from the committee on the submittal from the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulations and/or the recommendation from the Assistant City Solicitor?
Mr. Chairman, are you looking for us to recommend following the advice of the Assistant Solicitor?
Well, I'm looking for any feedback that the committee might have and what the will of the committee might be. I do know that we have, I do believe there are some representatives here from the dealerships. I see a few heads nodding there. We actually were not planning to hear from them. Were you intending to speak? Is there a, or are you here to observe? Here to. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is John Perot. I'm General Manager of BMW Peabody, the Lionwa Auto Group. My address is 10 Burnham Road, Wenham, Mass.
Thank you. And did you have a comment on the
Yeah,
letters?
no, first of all, we are in receipt of that letter. We believe we had a little flaw in our process. When we trade for a car, it goes into a lot and waits reconditioning. At that time, it has a stock tag on it, no plates on it. If somebody were to drive through and look, it would appear that it was a used car without a lemon law sticker. However, it's not for sale until we get it through the shop, recondition it, determine that we're going to keep it and actually sell the car, and at which time we make sure that they do have the appropriate stickers and comply. Since this has come up, we now put a sticker on them as soon as we trade for them. So even the cars are out back for reconditioning, going to the auction. If you bring your car in for service, sir, it might have a lemon law sticker when it leaves. I'll just warn you in advance. But we do apologize, and like I say, I think that is the majority of what the problem was, and we've certainly done all we can to rectify it.
Thank you. Were there other representatives here from dealerships that wanted to comment? So I know councilors, if you could Yes, your real name.
Good evening, sir. My name is Joel Avery, General Manager, Acura Peabody, part of the Lionwa Auto Group. I live 32 Eden Glen Ave in Danvers. As Mr. Perot said, in my 19 and a half years of being the general manager there, I've never received a negative report from the state. I did receive this back in February, and we have taken some actions, put some new processes in place. We have vehicles all over the lot. Not sure where they dinged us, if it was the front lot, back lot, but we do have a lot of trade-ins that are just waiting to get reconditioned and retailed. The new process in place is as soon as we trade a vehicle in, we now affix a sticker to the vehicle saying it's not for retail, not for sale. Once it's completed the reconditioning process, we take that and replace it with a lemon law sticker.
Thank you. As background, in my conversation with the Assistant City Solicitor on this matter, he was aware of a number of extenuating circumstances, such as have been described here in terms of timing of cars on the lot and so forth. Now that you've had the opportunity to review his proposed approach to this, he's not suggesting any immediate punitive action or show cause hearing or anything to that effect. He's more or less suggesting a process to monitor these communications from the state and to look for patterns and address them on an as needed basis. Is there any other yes, Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Councilman, again, and Council Chairman. This, in all my years on the council, this is the first time I've ever heard of such a thing. I don't think I've ever seen a lemon law sticker audit that was ever done in the city of Peabody. I do know the two gentlemen who came up to speak on behalf of Lionwa, and I will say that both have been with Lionwa for years. I don't think any of them have ever been, subjected to any type of audit. I give them credit, though, in the typical Lionwa tradition of stepping up, taking responsibility, and coming up with corrective actions, not waiting for anybody to tell them to do it. I think that just speaks to the type of company that they work for. I do hope that if this is, these types of individuals are going to put in extra steps to make sure that everything is in compliance, and that if we're going to go forward with this type of an audit on a regular basis, that we start to look at the compliance of all of the little used car lots around the city that, not only do they often violate the number of cars that are allowed on their lot, they oftentimes park the cars on the sidewalks where they're not supposed to. And you might be hard-pressed to find any lemon law sticker on the windows of those cars. So I just want to make sure that, if we do this, that we treat all fairly, and we ask all to comply the same way. And I did want to express my gratitude to the Lionwa people for the fact that they didn't wait to be asked to do anything. They've taken it upon themselves, and I want them to know that I, as a counselor, appreciate the fact that they did that.
Thank you, Councilor Gravel. And Councilor Gravel, just a point of information, when you said when we, if you were implying by the city, this was not a city audit. This was conducted by the state, and the state notified the city, the council, as the license granting authority. So I just make sure you're...
Yeah, I meant the collective we, which included the state.
Absolutely.
Because it seems odd to me, that they selected some of the larger car lots, and that I didn't hear anything about any audits that were conducted for some of the smaller lots that line the city. So I just want to make sure that everybody's treated fairly, and I did want to make sure I expressed my appreciation to them. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Other counselors? Seeing none, would there be a motion to accept the recommendation laid out in the Assistant City Solicitor's May 10th communication to City Council?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you heard that motion from Councilor Gould. Roll call.
Councilors O'Neill,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
We are adjourned.